Baker.
All right, guys, is carnivore diet better than these Ozempic medications? Well, first of all, here is an article.
No, it's not. Unless you can show randomized trials showing similar rates of weight loss, then no, it's not.
Written by Dr. Jeff Stanley, who's one of the primary.
Like, by the way, this is like saying not eating anything is better than Ozempic. Like, yeah, I guess you'll lose weight faster if you don't eat anything at all, but that, like, when you talk about efficacy of treatment, who's going to adhere to not ever eating?
Physicians at a company called Verta Health, where they say they've treated tens of thousands of people who have taken these drugs. And what they've seen is that the weight loss is much less than what has been advertised by the drug companies, typically around 10%. A high percentage of people lose a significant amount of lean mass, up to sometimes 60 to 70% of the lean.
Yeah, so that's because they're not weight training while they're taking the drug. That's why they're getting a lot of reduction in lean mass. If you follow any calorie restricted diet where you're severely restricting calories, like cutting them in half, you're going to lose a lot of lean mass.
Lean mass, which is obviously not desirable, and that most people are unable to stay on the drugs either due to side effects or cost purposes. And so in the end, most of the people will end up disappointed with the results from that. And it's not to say that some people won't have good results, but the vast majority of people most likely will have disappointment over the long term, 3-5 years, something like that. And it's because probably the prescribing patterns for the way most people get this is they go to their primary care doctor and they give them a damn shot. And there's no support, there's no really solid advice to stop eating the crap food, so on and so forth. So let's contrast that to a carnivore diet. Now, a carnivore diet will act in a similar way with regard to satiety. It'll stimulate our endogenous, our own produced GLP-1, hormone, which is what these drugs tend to mimic, and it does it in a physiologically appropriate way. I saw some people saying, well, your own natural GLP-1 it disappears very quickly, doesn't have a very long half-life. That's by design. Can you imagine if somebody said, well, we're going to take insulin that's going to last for a week at a time, where it's supposed to be pulsatile, right? This is the incorrect physiology that we're doing there. And so maybe there are consequences to that, to always having your insulin sky high, or always having some other normal physiologic thing is supposed to be pulsatile high all the time. Perhaps so. Perhaps why we have so many of these reports of negative side effects like gastroparesis or stomach paralysis, right? Because this drug just stays and stays and stays where it's supposed to be short-lived. But back to a carnivore. Now, a lot of people find when they do carnivore, because they're actually giving up, they're actually forced to give up all that processed garbage, which basically is killing people, and this is not what these drugs.
Yeah, but red meat doesn't kill anybody, right? Even though the people who eat most red meat are the ones most likely to die.
Don't necessarily do. These drugs don't come with the instruction to stop eating processed food. Maybe someone smart enough tells them to do that, but as long as they continue.
Yeah, so this is stupid. Again, there's adherence issues. How likely is somebody to adhere to some sort of restrictive diet routine when they have fucking a number of problems that are making them eat this processed food versus taking a drug to reduce their appetite? What is easier to adhere to?
Continue doing that, as long as they don't give up that stuff, they're never going to be successful, or they're rarely going to be successful. So with carnivore, you're kind of forced to go through that withdrawal period from this garbage food to, actually, and a lot of people find it much easier because
Sean Baker literally on his Instagram has photos of him going to In-N-Out Burger and eating fucking burger patties with cheese. And here he is saying, yeah, carnivore forces you to eat clean. In-N-Out Burgers are that's clean eating?
They finally have the nourishment and they're finally abstaining from this. Again, it's the analogy of, if you had a heroin addict and you had a drug that could help with heroin cravings, but you told them, hey, just keep doing the heroin like once or twice a week, the success rate would still be.
That analogy makes absolutely no sense. The appropriate analogy would be if you had a heroin addict and they were either told to stop taking heroin with no other form of treatment, you just told them don't do heroin anymore, versus take a drug that like blocks opiate receptors so they no longer crave heroin. Guess what's going to have more fucking efficacy, you idiot?
Despite any efficacy of the drug, the success rate would still be quite low. So carnivore is an abstinence diet. It makes people come to terms with their nutrition, maybe for the first time in their lives. And unlike Ozempic, which short-term side effects could be disastrous for a, albeit minority of the population, but certainly it's significant and consequential for those.
The amount of anecdotal reports I've seen of people getting hospitalized after eating the carnivore diet, developing scurvy, having massive, ridiculous diarrhea, having heart palpitations because their electrolyte balance is fucked and they're dehydrated. Like the idea that you can't get short or long-term issues on the carnivore diet and it's totally safe. Again, retarded.
To do that. Carnivore doesn't seem to have these side effects, right? And people talk about, well, long-term, 30 years down the road, you may develop heart disease. Well, here's the other interesting about carnivore. And even though I'm an advocate for it, most people do carnivore for a period of time, 3 months, 6 months, and then they transition to something kind of a hybrid where they're still eating mostly meat. Maybe they include, a few other whole food products. And I think that's perfectly acceptable, perfectly fine for the vast majority. There's a subset of the population that likes carnivore and continues to do it. I'm one of those, but I don't necessarily say that.
I think he's full of shit. He claims to only eat skeletal muscle tissue. If he was doing that, he would have developed scurvy by now. He's not just only eating meat. He's probably eating bananas or potatoes here and there.
Everybody needs to do carnivore for the rest of their life. This isn't vegan ideology, right? This is do what works for you. And my hope is someone does a carnivore diet, they get unaddicted to that crap, they fix whatever issue it is, albeit maybe a mental health disorder or an autoimmune disorder. Then they find something that may be more sustainable for them. And then they add in some resistance training and get stronger and on and on and on. And this is where I see that by actually addressing the true root cause of the problem, which is stop eating the garbage food, stop being addicted to stuff, stop eating for non-nutritional reasons. And then fix that mindset, fix that physiology that goes with that. You don't need the drug.
Yeah, again, this is stupid. Sean is literally saying, oh, just eat better. Like, okay, great. If everybody could do that, you'd solve obesity, but clearly that's just not the reality, stupid.
In fact, the drugs may be counterproductive. It may just delay the inevitable for you, Anyway, my thoughts. What are your thoughts? It's interesting to see this. This is obviously...
Sean is like a genuinely stupid guy who has no critical thinking skills. When he debated Nutrivore, Nutrivore was actually surprised at just how dumb this guy is, especially considering he used to be a medical doctor. It's probably because of his stupidity why he used to be a medical doctor, but he was actually able to become a medical doctor. You wouldn't expect somebody to be that dumb. But this guy is literally claiming, oh, I can solve obesity. Stop being fat. And don't care about the Super Bowl, though.
Something, and this is a funny thing, that people will not even bat an eye, prescribe these drugs immediately. Long-term consequences be damned. We don't know the long-term consequences of what these drugs are.
We probably do know the long-term consequences. Again, I think at this point there's several years worth of follow-up with these drugs. We already know potential side effects. And the thing is, too, we know the long-term consequences of obesity. And it's pretty clear the long-term consequences of obesity are worse than the long-term consequences of taking fucking Ozempic.
Are being taken for weight loss over a period of many, many years. We've got a little bit of data on it being used for diabetes. But again...
Yeah, so again, he's literally claiming, oh, I have the cure for obesity. Just stop being fat.
As this article points out, the diabetes overall outlook since these drugs have been on board has not changed much. There's still a lot of diabetics. The outcomes aren't much better. So are they a solution for the obesity crisis? Most likely not. Again, it's a Band-Aid, it's a crutch. It is something that will help a small percentage of people likely that use them over the long term. But until you address the root fundamental cause of why you are obese and addicted to food and continue to eat crap food, it's basically a short-term vehicle to make pharmaceutical companies lots and lots.
If he's so concerned with people eating shitty food, you're going to eat less shitty food if you're eating less. Like, how does he not see that as a benefit?
Some money, a lot of flash marketing, and beyond that, you're going to see a lot of people that are gaining most of their weight back. Many of them were gaining more.
Yeah, like the idea that okay, if you'd normally eat an entire box of Oreos, but you take this drug and you can only eat like 4 or 5 Oreos, that wouldn't benefit you. What an idiot. Do you